Hi everybody, thanks for joining me for part 2 of the Twins Under the Red Moon adventure that I've been running for my friends, a homebrew adventure. And in the last game session, we'd sort of finished up in this room right here. There'd been a large battle. The halfling barbarian had taken care of quite a few of the enemy, and one of the kids, or the twins, that had been kidnapped, they saw the twin dragged off from this room. They don't know where the twin went. But what happened at the end of the last adventure was I was a little concerned because, as you can see from this room, really to the end of the adventure was around that hall and into this main open space here where there was supposed to be a large battle with the final guy. And unfortunately, because we were finishing the adventure in this room, it didn't leave a lot left for a follow-on adventure. So as I mentioned in my last video, the first thing I wanted to do was increase or add a few extra rooms. So I had to think about what might be a good way to do this without having to change this actual map that I had here, noting that I'd sort of run out of space on this A4 size page. So I decided to install a basement. So the first thing I did was added in some stairs, some locations for some stairs. See, you can see I added some stairs here, and I point the direction the stairs going down. And what I also did was I created a blockage or pile of rubble here in this hallway, so you couldn't go down that hallway anymore, and the only option was going to be to go down the stairs and then come up at the other side. From there, I then created a new blank template where I could see where the well was. I actually identified that the well might lead down to a cavern down below, some sort of subterranean water aquifer, and from that point you might be able to access it and get out of the temple from there. I also had the location of the two stairs, and then I proceeded to draw up a new map. I decided to place a trap in that very first room from there. From there down into a room which I identified as a room filled with evil, torturous devices. And from there, it would sort of open up through a doorway into a subterranean cavern area. So it would actually become more of a natural cavern. And I was thinking I might place some giant spiders in there, maybe some shadows or something like that. Something dark, add a little bit of mood and a little bit of tension going through that direction. And it would also lead up into this water cavern. So if they wanted to, they could investigate this and find a way either up the well, which they discovered in the first part of the adventure, or potentially it might lead out to a stream on the side of the mountain. So there was a couple of options for them to investigate, and it would come around to this main room, which is the main basement room. And I visualize this as sort of part of that sacrificial area from upstairs. So this is actually located right underneath the dais or the platform where the hypothetical sacrifice was going to take place at nighttime. And this was a huge bowl to capture any of the refuse or anything that came through from the sacrifice. It was sort of a spiritual room, but particularly old, dry, and ill-used, filled with old furniture and cobwebs, not of any use. So then I sort of considered, how do I stop the players from going directly in there? What sort of challenge could I put in here? And I came up with an idea of a very weak vampire. There's a lot of blood or focus on blood in this adventure. The marauders have kidnapped the children to use their blood for their sacrifice, and vampires obviously drink blood. So sort of felt it was quite fitting that they would have a vampire chained up in this room. And as I was thinking about that, I thought, well, potentially if the players don't capture Gregor or don't find him within the adventure, they may discover him here, where the marauders have decided that as he is a traitor to the nobleman, that they couldn't trust him either, and so he was going to be sacrificed to the vampire. So that's sort of the little area that I came up with. I added, for the trap, I came up with an idea of a huge range of spears in the roof, and I placed a large round boulder, maybe the size of a 2 foot wide boulder, as you came down the stairs. And that was really just a red herring. On the side of the walls, I said there was a whole range of pipes, and you could hear water running down those pipes. And on investigation, they'd find one pipe that you could turn, and it would disengage the trap so that you could safely pass. And if you didn't disengage it, then the spears would shoot out of the roof as you stepped onto the stones or tiles on the floor. So that's essentially what I came up with to add another hour or two, a few things to investigate, a couple of things to challenge the players along the way. Just jumping back to the original map, when we finished last time, the players were in this room, and I had a few other players who were going to be joining that second session. So I actually placed them. This room right here had always been a cell block where a range of characters or just NPCs might be locked up, and so I decided that this would be a good location for the new players to find themselves. So on completing the battle in this room, the group adventured up, and they could hear shouting and calling out from this room over in here. And on investigating, they discovered the two individual new players locked within these cells. One of those guys was a bard, and he tried to encourage them to release him because he was going to provide some music, and also encourage them to join his evil religious group. And the other one was a priest who waited patiently. So they investigated the area. They discovered in the final cell, that was where the player's gear had been located. And after fidgeting with the locks, they were able to release the players, and everybody grouped up as a new team. So I found that was a really easy way to add the characters in midway, and it naturally led itself there. So once the characters resuited up, they investigated down these halls, and they actually headed into this room over here. And it was in this room that I had placed some grey slime, just as a little bit of an extra thing. It's an old temple, who knows what's in here. And that grey slime got on some of their armor, damaged some of their swords, and they decided that it wasn't a good thing to deal with. So they quickly left that area after dispatching one of the grey slime creatures. They investigated down into this hallway here, and they quickly realized that this was the end of the hallway where they had seen cobwebs and so forth from the first adventure. And they quickly guessed that some form of giant spider was located in this area, so they didn't proceed any further. Once they'd gotten their players, and they headed up into this area here, they found the stairs, and they saw the rubble had blocked their path, which left them no option. I mean, they had actually investigated up here, and that's why they had come down into this location to see, was there another way down here? But they couldn't find anything. So they proceeded, or the new bard character proceeded down this stairway very carefully and inspected what was going on. They tried a range of things. They tried pushing the boulder across the stone, and where the boulder rolled, all the spears came down and struck the boulder as it hit the tiles that initiated the trap. And after a bit of investigation, they discovered some blood-smeared stains on the tubes or pipes on the walls that were in this trap room down here, and they were able to disengage the trap. So there wasn't any need to use any disarm trap or anything. They basically just investigated, found the lever that controlled the trap, and turned it off. And in that, I described that there was water running. They could hear this water running, and when they pulled the lever, it actually stopped the water running for about 30 seconds. So they could hear the water stop, they got to the other side, and then after a little while, they could hear the water running again. So they knew that the trap had re-engaged, and if they were to walk across, the spears would strike them as they crossed. They then proceeded into this larger room here, which was filled with a range of racks, spiky objects, tools and implements for causing pain, and a range of other torturous devices. And at the same moment that they entered the room, a gentleman, a very large burly character wearing a mask and a big leather apron, obviously inspired by some sort of horror story, stepped into the room and actually said, "Stop! I don't want to fight." But the players didn't really believe them. They came up and threatened the character immediately. They put their knife to his throat, and one of the characters actually attacked him pretty much straight away. And so, right away, this character, who I had thought potentially could be an NPC who might provide some guidance to the players or give them a bit of an aid on what's going on, the characters, the players didn't take any of that opportunity. They saw him as an evil-looking character, and he certainly looked that way, so they dealt with him straight away. And after he was dispatched, they investigated down this hallway into the room where the very weak vampire was. And as I mentioned earlier, I decided to place Gregor there. So my idea was that this executioner had basically placed Gregor in this room, chained him up, and the vampire creature was walking on the roof and basically toying with its prey before it dealt the final blow. And the characters were only too happy to see Gregor chained up in the area, and they in fact aided the vampiric creature by pulling. Gregor had actually been chained in here, and his chain sort of went from the center of the room over to the side here, where the executioner was able to pull Gregor without going into the actual room and potentially exposing himself to the dangers. So the players actually assisted the vampire by pulling the chain so that Gregor was stuck right in the middle of the room, right next to the creature where it killed him. After investigating that room for a little while, they then decided to fight the vampire. And the characters were already pretty well beat up. And I didn't mention, but when the new characters joined and they were in the cells, I actually asked them to provide me with their passive perception and their current health and so forth. And I reduced their current health totals as if they had been in some fights as well. So it was a little bit fairer, and I removed some of the spells that they currently had, so they didn't have all their spell slots. They were also reduced just like the existing plays. From there, they basically had this fight with the vampire. One of them was shooting, as I recall, wooden spoons out of his crossbow, and I took that opportunity as one of the wooden spoons to be a stake to deal with the vampire and get rid of it quite quickly so that the players didn't take too much damage. From there, they headed into the room with the large bowl, which was collecting refuse and blood from the sacrifice temple above. They investigated the area, quickly discovered there wasn't too much in here, and then proceeded up the stairs. This actually did take a little bit longer, but I'm just summarizing. So they headed up these stairs, and in this room they discovered the large bedroom of the marauding chief, and in there was the cell, or a cell with both the twins locked up. The players quickly released the twins, provided them with some weapons that they had collected along the way, and from there they stepped into this next room where they found the marauding chief preparing for the ceremony. They battled the chief, and with all five of them, plus the twins, and particularly the daughter, who was keen to be involved and wanted to assist in the battle, they were able to dispatch the marauding leader, capture his gear, take his large mask, and then the characters inspected through the door into the main large hall, where they spotted about 20 or 30 of the bandit marauders waiting for the ceremony. Now, I had planned in the first adventure, or part of the adventure, that perhaps an explosion might happen and that might take out a couple of these bandits and also open up a pathway out of the temple. But on seeing the large number of enemy in the room, and also being quite weak, having cast most of their spells, taking quite a significant amount of damage at this point, they decided to exit the temple the same way they had come in. So they headed back down the stairs, back down through the basement, back past the trap, back up the stairs up here, and exited out of the temple the same way they had come in. They quickly proceeded to the manor house where they met the nobleman. There was a feast and a celebration. They were paid some rewards, several hundred gold pieces each. So I sort of wrapped it up there. That was a nice little way to add a few extra filler points within the adventure, save the kids, bring them back, and reward the players for their efforts. So hopefully this explanation of the Twins Under the Red Moon gives you a bit of an idea what we were doing, how we played, and if you've got any questions, let me know. Thanks a lot.